Welcome to Charlie's Bedtime Stories. A young Roman woman might receive flowers from a suitor, but the real message could be hidden underneath, pressed into wax tablets that half the household somehow noticed before breakfast. In the Roman Empire, romance was rarely just two people deciding they liked each other and finding a quiet corner to talk. For a respectable woman from a well-established family, courtship was a careful performance of glances, greetings, fabric, jewelry, family opinion, public behavior, and very controlled opportunities to be seen. Tonight, we will follow a composite young woman we will call Aurelia, imagined from the customs and household details described in Roman sources. She lives in first-century Italy in a bright house with an open atrium, a mother who misses nothing, servants who notice even more, and relatives who can turn one polite smile into a full family conference. There will be saffron-colored cloth, pearl hairpins, watered wine, flowers, wax tablets, festival crowds, dinner etiquette, dowry talk, household gods, bridal veils, and a small iron ring that later Roman and Romantic traditions associated with the heart. Romans did not really date in the modern sense. They met under supervision, through family networks, at festivals, dinners, temples, porticos, and public walks. Affection could matter. So could dowry, reputation, citizenship, property, family alliances, and whether one's future mother-in-law looked manageable. Some concerns are very ancient. Some are almost suspiciously familiar. As always with Roman life, customs varied by time, region, wealth, and status. Aurelia's world is the world of a prosperous household, where reputation is watched almost as carefully as the household silver. Other Romans courted, married, hoped, negotiated, and worried in different ways. But across the empire, courtship was rarely separate from family life. It was woven into rooms, errands, meals, festivals, and the small social rules no one had to explain because everyone already knew them. If you enjoy calm history told through ordinary rooms, clothes, meals, and manners, you may want to subscribe to Charlie's Bedtime Stories. And if you feel like leaving a comment before you get too comfortable, tell me which Roman courtship custom you would find most charming or most exhausting. For now, lower the lights a little. Let the room settle around you. We are stepping into a Roman morning where the roof is open to the sky, the floor is cool underfoot, and courtship has already begun before the suitor has even arrived. Before Aurelia opens her eyes, the roof has already let a square of Roman sunlight into the heart of the house. It falls through the roof opening, called a compluvium, above the atrium, and gathers in the shallow pool below. The water trembles when someone crosses the tiled floor. A servant's sandals whisper past. Somewhere near the kitchen, bread is being handled, oil is being poured, and a pot gives off the warm smell of lentils and herbs. Aurelia's room is not far from the center of the household. Privacy exists, but it is a delicate thing, easily disturbed by family, enslaved workers, freed servants, cousins, visiting clients, or anyone carrying laundry with an urgent expression. She is the daughter of a prosperous Roman family, not imperial royalty, but comfortable enough to have expectations laid carefully around her like folded linen. Her mother is already awake. Of course she is. Roman mothers in households like this had many duties, but one of the quietest and most serious was guiding a daughter toward a marriage that would not embarrass anybody before the household gods, the neighbors or the relatives who remembered everything. In a poorer family, courtship might look different. A shopkeeper's daughter might meet a future husband through work at a market stall, in a neighborhood courtyard, or through families who knew each other from the same street. Freed women might marry within business circles, craft networks, or households where patronage still mattered. Rural families might arrange matches through land, labor, neighbors, and seasonal gatherings. Among enslaved people, choices could be far more limited, and relationships depended on the will of those who controlled the household. But wherever one stood, Roman courtship was rarely separate from daily life. It grew out of doors being opened, baskets being carried, errands being shared, water being drawn, offerings being made, and reputations being watched. Aurelia sits up and hears her mother's voice in the atrium, calm but exact. The day has not yet properly begun, and already there is news. In Aurelia's Rome, two people may exchange glances, but entire families exchange opinions. There is no pleasant little arrangement in which Aurelia and a young man stroll off alone to discover whether they both enjoy figs and bad poetry. A respectable daughter is seen in company. She attends festivals with relatives. She visits temples with attendants. She hears names spoken over dinner, in the shade of porticos, and in the pause after a messenger leaves. Love is not absent. Roman poets wrote as though love could knock sense clean out of the head, which is one of the few claims poets and parents may both have believed. Their poems are full of doors, jealous glances, garlands, secret notes, and long evenings of dramatic feeling. But poetry was not the same thing as respectable family strategy. A young man might sigh beautifully in verse and still be a poor choice at the accounts table. Marriage was also a family matter. Fathers or guardians often held legal power. Dowry mattered. Lineage mattered. So did citizenship, property, manners, health, age, alliances, and whether a young man's household seemed stable enough to receive someone's daughter. Aurelia knows the difference between a smile and a proposal. A smile may make the breath catch for a moment. A proposal brings wax tablets, witnesses, calculations, and several adults who suddenly develop strong opinions about land boundaries. Her mother's concern is not coldness. It is the Roman shape of care. A daughter's marriage could protect her, raise the family's standing, strengthen connections, and decide where she would live for years. Affection might grow within that arrangement, or it might have to learn to sit politely beside duty. This is why a household becomes alert when an older woman arrives after breakfast, wrapped in a good mantle and carrying gossip with the dignity of public service. The older woman's sandals have barely crossed the threshold before the whole household seems to breathe more quietly. She is not called a matchmaker in any official way. She is a respected older woman, related to someone useful, acquainted with everyone else, and gifted in the Roman art of appearing innocent while knowing far too much. She accepts watered wine. She comments on the weather. She praises the shine of the atrium floor. Then, as if by accident, she mentions a young man. His family is respectable. His uncle has influence. His mother is said to be firm, though not impossible. This is high praise. His accounts are orderly, or at least not famously disorderly. He has been seen at dinners without making himself ridiculous. No one can ask for everything. Aurelia sits with her embroidery and pretends the thread requires all her attention. Her younger cousin, visiting for the week, sits nearby with the expression of someone hoping adults will forget that children have ears. This never happens when children are useful sources of later embarrassment. Other names follow. A senator's nephew with excellent manners, a merchant's son with a practical fortune and ambitious sandals, a widower with land outside the city, a young equestrian who writes poetry, which may be charming, unless it means he writes poetry about himself. The women discuss families as though they are examining cloth in a market. This one is strong but coarse. That one is fine but expensive. Another looks good in the light and may not survive washing. Behind the humor sits serious knowledge. Women's networks could shape courtship in powerful ways. Mothers, aunts, attendants, neighbors, and widows carried information through Rome more effectively than any formal announcement. They knew who drank too much, who owed money, who treated servants badly, who honored obligations, and which household looked serene only because everyone inside had agreed never to speak above a whisper. Aurelia says very little. Her silence is part manners, part caution, and part the ancient condition of being discussed while present. In Rome, a pearl hairpin can be decoration, family announcement, and small diplomatic instrument all at once. By late morning, Aurelia's mother brings her to the women's room, where folded clothing waits in careful piles. A tunic lies across a chest. A thala, the outer wrap worn in public, is shaken open and examined for creases. A proper stola, the long garment especially associated with respectable married women, belongs more to the life Aurelia is being guided toward than to the mourning she is living now. For today, the message must be careful. Unmarried, well brought up, well watched. An ivory comb rests beside a small bronze mirror whose reflection is flattering only if one has a generous imagination. Her mother chooses hairpins with restraint, enough shine to show good standing, not enough to suggest desperation. Jewelry speaks, and in Roman society it is best if jewelry speaks in a well-bred, indoor voice. Aurelia is reminded how to walk near the edge of the forum, how to greet an elder, how to lower her eyes without seeming frightened, and how to listen without appearing dull. It is an entire education in being visible while never looking as if visibility was the point. Respectable Roman women were not hidden away from public life. They attended games, ceremonies, dinners, and religious festivals. Elite women could be influential, socially alert, and deeply involved in household business. But their reputations had to be managed. A woman's public presence was like her clothing, arranged, watched, interpreted, and occasionally judged by people with nothing better to do. Which is to say, people in every century. While Aurelia's hair is being pinned, her attendant Livia enters with a woven basket of flowers. The roses are fresh, the violets are tucked beneath them, and under the stems, where only someone very observant would look, lie 2 small wax tablets bound together. Livia sees them at once. She says nothing, in the very loud way trusted attendants say nothing. The basket smells of roses, but the real perfume is the faint beeswax of a hidden message. Aurelia waits until her mother is speaking with the older woman, then she lifts the tablets just enough to see the scratched lines. The message is modest. It asks whether she will attend the festival later that day. It mentions roses. It mentions violets. It does not say directly that the writer hopes to see her. Roman respectability often preferred the scenic route. The young man's name is Marcus. He is connected to the family mentioned that morning. His hand is neat, though the final line presses too deeply into the wax, as if courage arrived all at once and leaned on the stylus. In many prosperous households, women had enough literacy to manage notes, accounts, letters, and social messages, though education varied widely. Wax tablets were practical things. They were written on, smoothed out, and used again. They carried accounts, invitations, lessons, household instructions, and occasionally the kind of careful sentence that made a household attendant raise one eyebrow. Servants often carried such things. They opened doors, took baskets, fetched cloaks, placed stools, and carried emotional weather from room to room. They knew who waited too long before answering a message. They knew who smiled at the wrong name. A Roman household might claim to have secrets, but it also had corridors. By afternoon, the house becomes busy with festival preparation. Saffron-colored fabric is brought out. A little scented oil touches Aurelia's wrists. Pearl pins are reset. Her mother adjusts the drape of her palla and steps back, not quite satisfied, because satisfaction would weaken discipline. Aurelia is not dressing for a private meeting. She is dressing for public life. Festivals, temple visits, games and walks through porticos gave families acceptable chances to observe one another. A young man might stand near his uncle. A young woman might pause beside her mother. Nobody is doing anything improper. Everyone knows exactly what is happening. Rome helps with this, because Rome is full of columns. Columns are useful when everyone needs something to look at besides each other. Along shaded porticos, families move through heat and dust, pretending to admire statues, vendors, garlands, and the noble condition of the sky. Voices rise from market stalls. Donkeys complain with honest feeling. A boy sells watered wine from a jar. Sandals slap against stone. Aurelia walks with her family, Livia behind her, the scent of rosewater fading in the sun. She keeps her pace even. She does not turn too quickly. She does not search the crowd. Then, across a colonnaded courtyard, beneath a patch of shade, Marcus appears beside his uncle. Nothing dramatic happens, no speech, no vow, no music except the ordinary noise of Rome. Yet one glance travels across the courtyard, over polished stone and warm air, and reaches Aurelia as clearly as if someone had placed another wax tablet in her hand. She looks away first. This is both good manners and a small triumph. By late afternoon, the glance has witnesses, analysis, and possibly a future dowry estimate. An aunt remarks on the quality of Marcus's sandals. Aurelia's mother asks whether the courtyard seemed crowded. The older woman who visited that morning will hear 3 versions of the moment before sunset, each one delivered as if it were not interesting at all. Courtship in Rome could be public in the strangest way. The people at the center often said the least. Around them, relatives built meaning out of posture, timing, fabric, and whether a young man remembered to greet the correct uncle first. Nothing settles immediately, because Rome, like most families, prefers to think about things while pretending it is already decided. For several days, Aurelia's household becomes quieter in an especially busy way. Her father speaks with a friend after the morning greetings. Her mother receives 2 visits and sends 1 message. Livia carries a folded cloth to a neighbor and returns with information that is not technically written anywhere. Marcus is seen again at a temple, standing with an older relative and making an offering with proper seriousness. He does not look at Aurelia too long. This is wise. A man who looks too long in public gives older women something to organize. There is another note, less hidden this time, carried with a small gift of fruit. There is a reply, dictated with care, polite enough for any aunt to read, and still warm enough for the person who understands the spaces between the words. Meanwhile, practical questions begin gathering like dust in a sunbeam. What dowry would be expected? Which household would gain which connections? Would Aurelia live mostly in the city, or sometimes at a villa? Was Marcus patient with servants? Did his mother manage her home well? Were his sisters content? Roman families knew that a marriage was never only two people. It was a doorway between households, and everyone wanted to know whether the floor on the other side was sound. For Aurelia, these waiting days are made of small motions. She works wool, she sorts ribbons, she listens when her mother thinks she is not listening. She pauses beside the atrium pool and sees her own face in the water, broken gently by trembling light. At dinner, the olives are simple, the smiles are discreet, and the seating plan is doing half the talking. That evening, relatives of Marcus come to Aurelia's house. Oil lamps are lit. Their flames tremble in the warm air. Bread is set out with olives, cheese, fruit, and small dishes seasoned with garum, the fish sauce Romans used with great confidence. Some guests recline, others sit. Everyone understands the arrangement, which means everyone understands who matters, who is being honored, and who is being politely measured. Aurelia appears with her mother. She speaks when spoken to. She listens as Marcus's uncle praises the household shrine, the garden, and the good order of the family. Marcus says something about a festival procession, and Aurelia answers with enough wit to be noticed, but not enough to become the subject of tomorrow's debate. It is a narrow bridge, and Roman girls of good families were trained to cross it in sandals. Older relatives discuss property with the seriousness of philosophers. Boundaries, rents, vineyards, loans, and dowries move through the conversation in calm phrases. Behind every marriage stood arrangements that were not romantic, but deeply important. A dowry could help support the new household. Depending on the circumstances, agreements could also help define what should happen if the marriage ended or if property had to be returned. Families considered inheritance, status, alliances, and the character of the people involved. Marriage was private in its daily life, but public in its meaning. Aurelia's feelings are not ignored, but they are held inside a larger frame. She may like Marcus's careful smile. Her father may like his family's accounts. Her mother may like that his aunt appears sensible and not too loud. A successful match requires many forms of approval, including the rare and precious approval of people who will not have to live with the consequences. After the guests leave, the atrium settles. The pool reflects the lamp flame. The flowers from the morning sit in a bowl, softer now at the edges. The wax tablets have been put away, but Aurelia remembers the pressure of the stylus in the final line. The house is quiet, and the future feels less like a festival than a doorway. She sits near the household shrine, where small figures of the family gods stand in lamplight. Marriage would mean leaving familiar rooms. It would mean learning another household's habits, another family's rhythms, another man's moods and silences. Roman wives, especially in prosperous circles, could hold influence, manage property, direct servants, host guests, and advise their husbands. But influence did not erase uncertainty. A new life is still a new life, even when everyone says it is an excellent arrangement. Aurelia turns the thought over slowly. Beyond the atrium, someone closes a door. The latch falls into place. The olive leaves flicker overhead while the future is written in wax and careful handwriting. A few days later, the families gather at a villa garden outside the densest noise of the city. The air smells of dust, leaves, and watered earth. Beneath the olive trees, stools are set out. A table holds tablets and a stylus. The adults speak in measured voices, and the ceremony of betrothal begins. Romans called this promise sponsalia. Customs varied, but in households like Aurelia's, words were spoken, agreements were witnessed, gifts might be exchanged, and what had been possible became expected. It is not yet the wedding. It is the bridge toward it. Aurelia stands with her mother nearby. Marcus looks more solemn than he did in the courtyard. This is understandable. Courtyards ask very little of a man. Betrothal asks him to become part of a family conversation that may continue for decades. Then comes the ring. It is iron, plain, and dark, not a glittering jewel. Some Roman and later traditions came to associate the ring finger with a vein leading toward the heart, though the history of that idea is not as tidy as romance would like. The body does not need to cooperate perfectly with symbolism. Belief gives the ring its warmth. Aurelia closes her hand and feels the circle against her skin. The metal is small, but it changes the weight of her hand. When she lifts a cup, it is there. When she gathers her pala, it is there. When she touches the edge of the table, it taps softly, reminding her that the future has become something she can hear. After the betrothal, daily life continues. That is one of history's quieter jokes. Great promises are made, and then someone still has to fold the linen. Back in the atrium, the same baskets sit by the same wall. The same pool gathers light. Livia carries the same household keys, yet everything has shifted. Aurelia notices the doorway to her room, the chest at the foot of her bed, the comb, the mirror, and the familiar little crack in one tile. Each object has begun to look temporary. Married women visit with advice. Some of it is useful. Some of it is ceremonial weather. They speak of patience, household order, managing servants, honoring the gods, remembering kin, and not letting a husband believe every domestic miracle happens by itself. That last lesson may be the most practical. Gifts arrive, a length of fabric, a small flask of scent, a note from Marcus's mother, formal but kind. Plans gather around Aurelia like threads on a loom. The wedding begins not with music, but with the soft pull of wool through patient fingers. Aurelia helps prepare the bridal clothing. The traditional tunic, plain and meaningful, belongs to old Roman custom. Women work with thread and fabric while the house breathes around them. The loom gives a steady sound. Wool moves through hands. The flame-colored veil waits nearby, folded like a little piece of sunrise. There are details to remember. The bridal hair must be arranged carefully. The belt will be tied with a special knot, old and symbolic. The veil, called the flammeum, will cast orange light around her face. These customs do not need to be explained every moment to be felt. They are repeated because others repeated them before. On the morning of the wedding, the room is full of women. Her mother adjusts one pin. An aunt adjusts another. Someone says the first pin was better. Someone else insists the veil must fall differently. A small pot of scent is opened and closed. A cloth is smoothed, then smoothed again, though it has committed no visible offense. Roman civilization built roads, aqueducts, and laws, but it still could not prevent relatives from disagreeing over bridal hair. Aurelia sits before the bronze mirror. The reflection is warm and blurred. The flame-colored veil changes the color of the room. Linen, wool, skin, lamp flame, and wall plaster all take on the shade of dawn. When she rises, the ring feels familiar on her finger. At the ceremony, family and witnesses gather, formal words are spoken, prayers are offered, the household gods are honored. Aurelia and Marcus stand close enough to hear each other breathe. For all the contracts and customs, the central gesture is simply two right hands meeting. This joining of hands, remembered in Roman images and wedding scenes, says what many words have already arranged. Families witness it. Relatives lean forward. An aunt tries not to cry and fails with dignity. Someone discreetly checks that everything is proceeding in the proper order, because even tenderness in Rome benefits from supervision. Afterward, dignity loosens. Wedding songs rise. Small cakes, fruit, wine, garlands, and good wishes move through the rooms. Torches are prepared. Nuts are scattered, a playful sign of leaving childhood behind. Children gather them at once, proving that symbolism and snacks have always worked well together. The day becomes evening. The household that spent weeks preparing now releases Aurelia into the torch-lit procession towards her new home. The streets are the same streets as yesterday, but tonight they shine as if Rome has lowered its voice. Aurelia walks with attendants and family around her. Torches burn amber against the walls. Flutes play somewhere ahead. Neighbors stand in doorways, watching with interest that is nearly blessing and nearly gossip. The stones beneath her feet still hold the heat of the day. This procession, carrying the bride from one household to another, is public and intimate at once. She is seen by the city, but she is also moving through a private change. The veil brushes her cheek. The ring rests against her finger. Marcus walks nearby, quieter now. At the doorway, old customs gather around the threshold. There may be blessings, careful gestures, laughter, and advice. A threshold is only a strip of stone until everyone agrees it is the edge of a new life. Inside, the new house smells of oil lamps, garlands, fresh plaster, and evening bread. The rooms are not yet familiar. The shadows fall in different places. The household shrine stands in its own corner, waiting to become part of her days. There is less to explain now. The contracts have been made, the words have been spoken, the nuts have been rescued by children. What remains is the work of living. After the wedding days, Aurelia and Marcus spend time at a country villa outside the city. The air there moves more slowly. Olive groves stand beyond the walls. Fig trees lean near the garden. In the shaded peristyle, water sounds from a small fountain and repeats itself without hurry. Aurelia learns where the oil lamp is kept. She learns which window catches the morning breeze. She learns how Marcus takes watered wine, and when the household dog expects crumbs beneath the table. Marriage, she discovers, is partly learning where another person leaves the lamp. The grand shape of courtship becomes smaller and more real. A glance in a courtyard becomes a cup placed beside another cup. A formal ring becomes the familiar touch of metal while folding cloth. A procession through Rome becomes sandals set near the bed at night. By evening, the fountain says the same thing over and over, which is exactly what the heart needs. Aurelia sits in the peristyle garden while the last light rests on the columns. The orange veil has been folded away. The wedding tunic lies in a chest with herbs tucked beside it. The wax tablets are stored with other household papers. Roses have dried at the edges and left a faint scent in the room. The villa settles by small degrees. A servant carries a lamp through the corridor. Someone closes a shutter. In the kitchen, bowls are washed and turned upside down to dry. The dog circles once beneath the table and gives up hope of further crumbs. Aurelia's ring no longer feels new. It has become part of her hand. It taps lightly against a cup. It catches a thread of light when she lifts the lamp. It is not an announcement now. It is simply there. The courtship that began with careful glances and family discussion has softened into ordinary motions, folding, pouring, listening, answering, waiting for the bread to cool, remembering where the keys are kept, saying good night before the lamp is lowered. Far away, Rome continues with all its rules and voices. Families still discuss matches. Mothers still notice sandals. Attendants still understand more than they say. Somewhere, another basket of flowers is being carried through another doorway, and another young woman is pretending not to care too much. But here, beyond the city, the night is larger than the rules. Olive branches move against the dark. The fountain keeps speaking in its small, patient way. The stones lose the heat of afternoon. The house grows used to breathing around its new mistress. Aurelia walks once through the rooms before sleep. She touches the edge of the chest, she lowers the lamp, she listens to the courtyard, to the water, to the leaves, to the little sounds that mean a household is safe enough to rest. In the bedroom, Aurelia lies beneath light linen, one hand resting near the edge of the coverlet. The courtyard is open to a sky of small stars. Beyond the wall, olive trees move slowly in the night air. A last thread of lamplight finds the iron ring on her finger, then thins and fades. Rome, with its flowers, tablets, dinners, witnesses, songs, and torchlit streets, grows distant. The house is still. Let the images drift now. Rosewater on the wrist, wax tablets beneath flowers, olive shade over a garden table, a flame-colored veil folded in a chest, a small ring catching the last of the light. Every age has had its ceremonies, its uncertainties, and its quiet hopes to be seen kindly. Tonight, there is nothing more to arrange, answer, or prove. The household has settled. The lamps are low, the footsteps have faded from the courtyard. You can let the story go on without following it closely. Let Rome grow softer at the edges. Let the fountain repeat itself in the distance. Rest now and sleep well.